When I began with this project, I was actually choosing something to really occupy my attention for really long term, so decades. And this is the theme that's, this is the issue that's not going anywhere. So when I moved in 2016, that was the hottest summer on record, and just a couple days ago, we had the hottest day on record again. So, for Floridians, it's nothing new. I like the quote, I'm quoting from somewhere, a book, where watching climate change is sort of like watching your kids grow. It's a fairly slow process, but occasionally you're startled by it. And that's what I'm trying to portray with FloodZone. That they're sort of slow images, but in their sequence, the narrative forms to where it becomes borderline alarmist. This project is my most sort of what we call straight photography or observational photography. Nothing is staged, certainly not in this exhibition. In the book there are 2 still lifes, but other than that, this is all observed and not constructed. But prior to that, for 7 years, I've been working in the studio, and then prior to that, my initial formal training was in architecture, so I was supposed to be an architect. And I see it, in these images, inevitably, they're very still. Because I'm not coming from the background in photojournalism, there are barely any action shots. They're very subtle, and they're meant to be sort of observed over a period of time rather than make an immediate effect. So there's very little drama happening. It takes a bit of taking in to contemplate them and to sort of decipher the message. The first that sort of solidified this work as a project is a photograph called Flooded Garage. And this is a black and white image of, there's a child standing in dark waters of a flooded garage. And the person portrayed is actually my son, Mark, wearing a bicycle helmet because we went exploring the day after Hurricane Irma hit Miami and Miami Beach, where we live. And sort of we went on this expedition to evaluate the damage. And we were one of the few people left in our condo building the next day. So this is when I realized that I can't escape the subject, that I have to address it. I realized about 2 years into the project that, a skill that I have, photographing, right, seeing the composition, finding my subjects is very different from editing the work. And that was critical in the formation of this project. Once I let go of trying to edit myself, it was very sort of smooth sailing. So I outsourced editing to David Campany, who's a writer, curator, and an artist himself, now based in New York. In terms of aesthetics and sort of formal elements in my work, a lot of it is, I think, sort of direct descendants of Russian avant-garde. And some of my favorite painters in the early 1900s, Natalia Goncharova, the use of color, the use of perspective, Alexander Rodchenko, and his refusal to sort of use boring viewpoints in photography. In terms of the painters, there's a certain color palette that's sort of prevalent here throughout FloodZone. It's reflective of the color palette in Miami specifically, even though the project includes 4 states. But still, you can see some references to constructivists and Russian avant-garde for sure. Initially in Russia, actually before I went into design, I was studying in preparatory school for political science. So that would have been my choice. But I sort of express my views through my work now, I think fairly effectively, to the point where the audience of the project is quite wide. And this is really my favorite aspect of photography as a medium, that certainly it is art, but it's also always a record. So it records, what's in front of the lens. So it communicates, right? So it's a great language. And for me, as an English second language person, that was important too. So how do you get across cultures? So the book of the project, FloodZone, was recently published by Steidl, German publisher. The editor is the same editor of the project, David Campany, who also contributed an essay. So this was very much a collaborative project for us. It was back and forth, and it took about 3 years of, again, very sort of fluid, free-flow photographing, and then David shaped it into that book, which took another year. There are over 80 photographs in the book, and roughly 50 of them have some sort of reference to water, direct reference to water. And it's amazing to see this project take off in Europe. I had an exhibition just this year in Amsterdam, which is another huge flood zone, different kind, but nonetheless, this is relevant there. It's currently being exhibited in Frankfurt, as well as in another German city, Ludwigshafen. It's going to continue its travels to Vienna in the fall, Kunsthaus Wien, and so on. There are others lined up, and I just had my first article about this project in Russian, so that kind of means a lot.